It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, John Hirx. John received his BA in Art History, Studio Art, and Chemistry, and MA in Art History and Ceramics from Hunter College of the City of New York. He received an MA and Diploma in Conservation from the Institute of Fine Arts, New York University. He is currently a doctoral student at The Ohio State University, pursuing a split degree in the departments of the History of Art and Materials of Science and Engineering. He has worked for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and joined the staff of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in 1993, where he is currently the head of Objects Conservation. His research interests include the technical studies of inorganic objects. John?
Good afternoon. Namjoon Paik, whose dates are 1932 through 2006, is generally considered by modern historians to be the father of video art. He was an early video artist to experiment with electronic media and played an important role in introducing the use of video as a form of artistic expression. In 1986, LACMA acquired Namjoon Paik's Video Flag Z, the third and final work in an edition of video sculptures. From 1986 until 2000, the sculpture was on continuous display at LACMA as it rapidly aged itself into technical obsolescence. And when I say it was on display from 1986 to 2000, that meant it was on display 24/7. In 2000, the installation went on loan to a retrospective at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, after which the installation was stored until funding became available for its restoration. And when I mean restoration, I'm saying restored to functionality. It had already started to experience phosphor burns in the tube. The stars were permanently burned into the sections, and a lot of the plastic was deteriorating. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today, even though I'm an objects conservator, I'm going to talk to you about preservation efforts rather than conservation efforts. Slowly moving.
Oh, it is?
Slowly. I'm going to show you a couple of stop-action shots. When you actually stand in front of it, it's a moving sculpture. Video Flag Z is a monolithic unit comprised, or at least it was comprised, of 84 white quasar television monitors, each of which fit into a white plexiglass armature that has square cubby holes whose space is 1/4 inch larger than each TV to accommodate the TV. The arrangement of television sets mimics the format of the American flags. In this case, we have 20 stars, 7 white and red stripes. Through electronic programming and the use of fast-paced edits and psychedelic effects, the ever-changing images flicker in a dazzling array across the zones of stars and stripes. The work is one of an addition of 3 video flags that Paik created. Video Flag Y is gray, and as far as I know is in the collection of the Detroit Institute of Arts. Video Flag X, which is black, as far as I know is originally, is in the Hirshhorn Museum. And the physical structure and stars and stripes format are similar on each version, but the flickering images on the screen are unique to each flag. For this version, specifically commissioned by LACMA, Paik included countless images borrowed from classic Hollywood films and other sources of popular American culture as a tribute to Los Angeles. And this particular image is, although it's a stop action, this is as you would see it installed in one of LACMA's galleries today. Another stop action, different shots, or images I should say. And let's see if we can show you what it looks like when it's in action. On the left and on the right, this is the acquired condition of video flag Z that LACMA acquired. And the left-hand side, it's in the process of installation. There is a storage space on the bottom, all the 84 monitors on top, and what you don't see would have been fans mounted horizontally across the back. This installation generated a tremendous amount of heat, and on the back side, you can see the myriad of cabling, electrical, and so on and so forth, and you'll note that there's this sort of a bump out at the back that accommodated the back of the CRT. This was actually installed, if any of you know LACMA, it was installed in what was called the Anderson building, and it was on the second floor. So when you stood in the plaza, you looked up and you saw video flag Z flashing day and night for many years. And it's in its original configuration, the flag consisted of the 84 sets, and it was on this compartmentalized shelving unit open on the front and back. And the unit measures 46.99 centimeters by 350 by 87.96. So what you really have are 7 units vertically stacked and 12 horizontally over across. So you have an overall measurement of about 6 foot high by about 11.5 foot long by 18.5 inches deep. The original 12-inch laser discs and players with the electronic connections, which would have been stored underneath in that storage space, away from view, we still have the laser discs. And the original Quasar television set had their control knobs situated flush with the front of the set. There's our latest pointer here. So the control knobs are actually down here, including the on and off button. The original sets measured 18 inches wide, 18 inches tall, and 20 inches deep. The edges and the corners of the set are not square, but rounded. Okay, so this molding is all rounded. There's not a perpendicular edge here, so it's rounded corners and a rounded edge. So 4 rounded edges, 4 rounded corners. And that's a key visual component to those TV sets. And it's a rather mod look. And the cathode ray tube inside the set had a 10 inches from here to here on the diagonal. Okay. So the housing, the shape of the housing actually echoes the shape of the CRT itself. So once when you assemble all of this armature, then there are end walls that are put up on both sides, and the way any of this was accessed by the AV was through a door that you'd pass through, so it was really quite enclosed. The shelving unit dissembles into 3 sections. So this is one section that's been taken out of here. So this is another section and another section. And they abut literally right here, and they're screwed together. And this is the original unit stored on, this was taken in 2010. And that's the travel frame it would have traveled to Santa Barbara in. However, you can see, oops, don't do that. How do you go back? There we go. Okay. You can see that from heat, light, all kinds of damaging activities, the plastic here had literally broken out, and it was about to break in many, many other places. So it was just completely structurally unsound to support the CRTs any further. So this is what we look like in 1986 here. White plastic and white plastic monitors. And this is what a good unit looks like in 2010. Good meaning that the housing is still intact and not broken and falling apart. LACMA's video flag Z was constructed on site by the artist in 1986, so I'm told from the files before my time, where it was displayed in a prominent position in the modern contemporary art galleries and operated continuously. In the late 1980s, the original Quasar television sets began to incur technical problems with wiring, switches, and image burn into the phosphorescent CRT tubes. And so, extra Quasar TV sets were bought by AV department staff as they would go on lawn sales throughout Los Angeles, and that's where our extras came from. And over the course of time, they pretty much would send these TVs out to be repaired, and as time would go by, there were fewer and fewer TV repair places. And so Video Flag Z was periodically and more often shut down as it became harder and harder to find replacement parts for the Quasar model, which was no longer manufactured, and the repair shops, of course, were going out of business. In 1996, Carl Solway Gallery, Paik's main U.S. representative and the vendor for Video Flags X, Y, and Z, made a gift to LACMA of 6 unused Quasar television sets that it held in reserve. The additional television sets made it possible to immediately reactivate the work, but in a matter of months, more of the original televisions began to fail. So from that time, Video Flag Z operated only sporadically between increasing frequent shutdowns for repair. And really, the last time it was shown in 2002, the Santa Barbara Museum of Art organized a Namjoon Paik exhibition, which included prominent examples of his video constructions borrowed from collections throughout the US and Europe. And Video Flag was included, but technical problems and lack of spare parts continued to disrupt the successful display of the work even in Santa Barbara. And after return of Video Flag Z to LACMA, the decision was made not to return the work to public display, clearly because the parts weren't working anymore, and it was placed in storage, awaiting some plan to do something with it. Part of the plan, or as the plan was developing, there were lots of curatorial discussions, and I was interviewed by the Los Angeles Times about Video Flag and its problems, and my comment to them was, I am not a television manufacturing plant. How would you like me to preserve these things? But we did eventually come up with a very unusual plan. Okay. So you see the original 1986 now yellow, not white, plastic Quasar TV sets. And the plastic was analyzed as ABS, and it was lightly yellowed, dark yellowed, brown, embrittled, cracked, non-replaceable, non-repairable. And the usual elements of decay are heat and light. And you can actually even see, see how brown it had become here. And each one of them was slightly different in color. No, they weren't all no more homogeneous white. Some of them were more yellow than others, more yellow here or brown. And you can see at the back, this was the sole vent for heat to come out. They were never intended to be in these tight little cubby holes where the heat was absolutely contained. And so, as the heat began to do its thing and the shelves warped and cracked and the sets changed in color, the overall condition of the artwork really was pointing to refabricating the entire artwork, including the shelving unit. And in many, many discussions between curatorial and conservation, conservators are conservative by their very training and want to be able to move into a treatment and back out of a treatment, move into it and back out of it. It's called reversibility. In this case, no such thing was available to us. However, the curators did get a letter from Namjoon Paik, which was one of the keys to this preservation effort, that really allowed us to do what we needed to do to keep his work of art functional and looking as it should look, but that we pretty much could do what we needed to do. So in a letter to LACMA, Paik made the following modifications to the original work should they be needed. So television sets may be replaced with newer model hardware by the same or different manufacturer with substantially the same television screen size, substantially the same size. Laserdisc players may be replaced with newer models or newer technology to play the software. The software may be converted to be compatible with any new technology. Any supporting interior or exterior framework for the television sets may be modified or refabricated as required to accommodate a replacement television set or sets, provided that the modification of framework does not substantially alter the visual design intention of the work. So with that in mind, we return to these rounded corners and edges, and this, of course, up to about this point, is the only thing you see of the set. You don't see anything back here. I'm sorry that there are also controls up here. You don't see, from here back, you don't see anything, which is very different than the approach that Hugh showed you earlier with Robot, where you're seeing a sculpture in 3 dimensions. You don't see this full set. Also, bear in mind that at this point, when we were setting about on a new game plan for preserving this piece and reactivating it, Los Angeles is a very active seismic zone, and this thing weighs a lot, very, very heavy, with all of these 84 monitors, all glass monitors stacked. So this was also the time to devise a seismic mount for it as well, so it wouldn't fall over on somebody visiting the galleries. So bearing in mind Paik's letter, these are some of the things we had to consider. So at the time we're about to embark on this project, we're at crossroads with the monitors. Should we replace with CRTs or flat screens? Because at the time we were thinking about the project before it even started, CRT manufacturing plants were starting to disappear and flat screens were becoming as popular as they are today, but they look totally different. So neither way would really get us a set that could be found on the shelves for any length of time in terms of a long-term solution, because when you enter into this problem, if you say flat screens are out and you want to go to CRTs, well, at the time that I was working on this, I would literally go in and out of every single Best Buy, whatever store you can imagine sells a TV set. They come and they go. The models change with great rapidity. So, and Quasar sets were no longer manufactured, and there were no sets of like size in the market, even close. Making a mold of the fascia would be costly, or even making a mold of this TV set would be very costly to keep the whole look of it. And, but clearly we had the physical and visual elements of the old monitor that had to be retained, these corners and edges. But none of these attributes would translate very well into a new CRT or flat screen. The laser discs and players were no longer manufactured, and what were they going to be converted to? The deteriorating shelf needed to be replaced, but with what? Okay, and you can see the TV sets replaced the old Quasar sets with new models, but with what? All of these considerations that we had to go through in order to figure out what we were really going to do, what would it cost, what was real, and in answer to the question of originality in terms of a work of art like this, we really had to grapple, conservation curatorial had to grapple with what is the original, what can you realistically do, what are the real costs involved, and also knowing that we were going to do something that would, in theory, carry us forward X number of years into the future, by which we had to readdress these issues all over again to take the next leap. How far into the future could our treatment carry us? With the Paik letter on file and lots of discussion between conservation and curatorial, in 2006, the decision was made to resurrect Video Flag Z for the opening of one of our new buildings, the Broad Contemporary Art Museum. With funding secured from the Samsung Foundation and an initial put from the Paik Studio in New York, the process of restoring the artwork was put in motion. The funding allowed for the purchase of new CRTs and a new shelving system. So, one of the pathways that we then took, since we couldn't find a normal household TV, was to look at a different CRT market, which is monitors for security. And in conservation, there are about 5 of us who worked on the project. I'm the eldest, since I inherited it from a former administration. A new group came in, and so about 5 of us altogether actually brought Video Flag Z online. And the head of the department today, Mark Gilberg, is a scientist, and his contribution to the project was to find a CRT that's actually used in the security industry that we eventually wound up using. But he's not an art person, he's a scientist. So he didn't initially understand the necessity and the importance of the look of the set in terms of the overall presentation. He understood that it was originally white and needed a CRT, but that doesn't quite work, right? Doesn't quite work. And you can see here, this is debris. The whole inside of the TV set is just falling apart, nice big cracks here. But he understood we needed a monitor, but not quite like this. So the middle television was the first attempt at replacing the TV to be considered, but you can see that it wasn't going to work. And the Paik studio had previously fabricated a custom-made black shell for the Hirschhorns, which housed 9-inch picture tubes with an image slightly smaller than the original, which was deemed acceptable by the studio. So the replacement for something similarly sized was a consistent theme. A similar prototype was fabricated in white for LACMA's review, but that shrinkage in size just wasn't acceptable, and it was the box-like features. So that got kind of kicked out. So we knew, one way or the other, that we would have to, in some way, shape, or form, reuse this housing in the final look of our product. Okay? And we're going to have to modify that in some way. And also extend its life, because the heat was the primary culprit in its embrittlement, yellowing, and destruction. Okay. The feasibility study was conducted to determine if it was possible to disassemble and retrofit the old Quasar television sets to accommodate a new monitor with the desired dimensions, and if it was possible to identify and procure new monitors which could be disassembled and rewired to operate within this new housing. This TriView TCM 1002 with the desired power and operational specifications was found, which proved ideal for the intended purpose. It's a professional high-end industrial monitor for security applications where high resolution and clear image quality are required, because we really were trying to preserve the video component of this thing in really good high-quality color. Okay? And it possessed a true 10-inch picture tube, same as the Quasar. That was the same exact size, and it's rounded. It's a rounded CRT, just like the Quasar TV set. So, although tedious and time-consuming, it proved possible to adapt the original Quasar televisions to receive a new monitor and to rewire the new monitors to operate within their new housing. In order to accommodate the new monitor, however, it was necessary to cut down the original Quasar housing so that the new monitor would lie flush against the face of the Quasar set, and to fabricate a new chassis with brackets to secure the two in place. Okay, it took overall 17 individual steps to get there. We're not going to go through all 17 of them, but I'm basically going to give you the idea of the transformation. Okay. So, this was the first attempt at making a new television for Video Flag Z. And this was my predecessor, Steve Colton, who had a background in engineering, and we contracted with him to make the first prototype. So this is the back of the TriView. This is clearly an open mesh, and it wraps all the way around. And then this is the front of the original Quasar TV set. So lots of ventilation to allow this portion to, in theory, live on. Okay? So what we did was we removed the old electronics of the Quasar television set and replaced it with this new tri-view. Okay. And when we had made the conversion, the first conversion, we needed to make sure that things looked good. So the decent, one of the good monitors connected to a tri-view. These are all the same CRT in the back, but this is the original Quasar fascia. Okay. However, this thing is huge. I mean, it's just huge from here to here. It's just enormous, all right? And at about this time, I had returned to graduate school, and I was taking engineering classes, and I looked at this thing, and I really thought to myself, well, it's the right idea to make this conversion, but it's just, something's wrong with it. So I personally sat and took the whole thing apart again and realized that what we really needed was to stay within one engineering system. So what Steve had done was to try and wed two engineering systems together to prioritize ventilation from this thing. But it also was extremely unbalanced. I mean, there's a handle in the top, it was all tippy, and it wouldn't, I mean, the armature that we'd have to make for it would be, double the depth of the original armature. So that wasn't going to work. So I took the whole thing apart and thought, okay, the only way that we're really going to be able to get where we want to get in terms of maintaining the look that Paik wanted us to follow was to relieve the fascia of some of its former duties. Its former duties, let's go back a minute. Its former duties were really, this is a unit. Everything is contained within the unit. It has visual, aesthetic, as well as structural duties. This monitor here is literally bolted onto the inside corner at each point. Probably some of the stress that's right here is due to the compression of those screws. We had to relieve it of those duties. So we literally, it comes apart in two halves. We took the back half out, took all the guts out, and had to arrive at the idea that we were going to just use it as a visual device. Steve hadn't gotten that far yet. What he wanted to do was connect all of this still into its original four corners, which was a whole big production that really wasn't going to work out well. And in actual fact, this is really what we wind up with, and I'll show you how we get there. Okay? So in order to get the look that we're after, we want the CRT correct, good color. We want to use the Quasar sets, and we have to make a new unit armature that looks like the old one. We had to take a few steps to get there, and these are the steps. One of the guys in my lab, he grew up in a TV repair shop. His father was a TV repairman, so he seemed to have natural skills for doing all this sort of thing. So he removed the guts of the Quasar set. Okay. Before he did this, of course, you have to discharge any electronic component. And there are tools for doing that. In his case, what he learned from his father is you push the on button and you just hold it and discharge anything there, so there's no energy left in it to worry about. So he proceeded to remove the guts of the good sets that were left to us, which are 84 original Quasar sets that have no cracks or anything like that. They're discolored, but don't have any cracks. Okay? So here is the inside of the original CRT, minus its face, and these are the mounting screws, the mounting holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? These are where it would have attached to the inside of the cowl, the fascia cowl, and they are, of course, not exactly where the other one, where the new one's going to be. So we had to make mounts. So we take the face off of this, and these holes here are the new mounts. But this chassis, this is an engineered chassis system. The other one doesn't have this chassis. So we made mounts that literally push this CRT up and over slightly to be centered right in front of the original Quasar cowl. Okay? So chassis, no chassis. So we stayed in one engineering system, the new one. And we built a jig because this thing did not fit on correctly. You can see the holes for the mounts. But in order to get this to fit onto the new system, it had to be trimmed down. Painfully, unfortunately, no turning back for a conservator. But that's what we did. It was very painful. But that's what we did. Okay? And then it got all cleaned up. And these are the new mounts. So this new, the tri-view, was lifted up slightly and moved out slightly with, instead of 4 clips, this is 2 clips joined as one. So 168 of those were individually made, so 2 for each monitor. Okay. Okay. So this is before brackets, no bracket, after bracket. And then we moved the power from the front of the tube to the back of the tube because we had learned in its past life that security guards and people would turn the monitors on and off as they felt like, so we took that little toy away from them. Yep, that's the back plate. So this is ready to receive the fascia. It's got its new mounts, so the CRT has been slightly adjusted in position. And there you see the fascia being put on, literally just sits there. Okay? So original, tri-view, hybrid. And controls of this are right underneath this, so you can still access it. This is one of my concept drawings. We have a giant roll of craft paper in my lab, and that's what I use to draw concept drawings on. And then they go off to the engineer. And what I was originally after was, instead of this 3-part shelving unit, I was trying to break it down into much smaller units for ease of storage, handling, shipping, palletizing, all these things that museums have to concern themselves, as well as with API people that have to push this stuff around because it's all heavy. However, the criteria by which the engineer worked with this, particularly so that heat would be drawn away, my design didn't exactly work. So it got converted into a little bit of a different design, which is to say that these units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here and here, these plates will come out. Literally, that just screws, the whole thing just screws apart. And there are heat channels. There's a heat channel in between these shelves, so heat can go right up and out. And this is what today the armature looks like. It's painted on the face and on the sides. It's painted white. It's aluminum, though. And so in order to join these, you put plates in. You screw them in with shelf supports, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then that all joins up and looks like itself. Okay? That's without the seismic mount. So this is the completed back. Much reduced wiring. That was AV's contribution. I wanted all this spaghetti wiring to kind of be condensed down. Laser discs are replaced with media players, and the original Video is on the museum server, so if something happens here, we just download a new copy. So this is the way Video Flag Z looked originally, white on white. Now we're yellow on white, but unless you really were John, one of the Johns that knew this from, early on, the casual viewer or the vast majority of people would just be enjoying Video Flag Z. A little on the old side, a little on the yellow side, but the color is right, it plays correctly, and it has a seismic mount that goes, it's made out of unistrut, it goes all the way across and down, so I don't expect it's going to be falling off anytime soon. So this is the way we were, much tidier, easier to access. You can compare it in your mind to the talk that Hugh gave on all their wires. Okay. And these are the routers. This is where the players are. There are 3 of them. So, as my time runs out, I'll just tell you where we are in Video Flag Z's life. Video Flag has been on display, not continuous display, but has been on display for the last 3 years or so in the BCAM building. And everyone enjoys it. And of course, as I was getting ready to leave to come here, we get an art discrepancy report. We're big on art discrepancy. Somebody touched this, somebody moved that, somebody did this, somebody did that. Video Flag Z, one of the stars, the tri-view monitor, has now burned a star in the back. I wasn't supposed to get a star burn. So now when I go back, we have to start the process all over again to see if we can still buy tri-view monitors, 10 inches on the diagonal, and start to acquire those, to replace those. And eventually, the monitors will continue to suffer and degrade. There's not a thing I can do about that. So my future plan for that is to probably do some of these laser profilometries and have that scanned into a machine that does plastic, it builds a 3-dimensional image out of plastic powder, but that's all yet to come. For the moment, we're still enjoying the fact that, for me, it was actually slightly anticlimactic, because once we actually assembled it, and you saw that, and I said, oh, yeah, there it is. But it wasn't like you didn't know anything better, just was there, so I did my job. But cutting and slicing the monitors to adhere to Namjoon's request was very painful as a conservator, but it was between that and the letter and finding a monitor that fit. There were some very key steps along the way that allowed Video Flag Z to be preserved, an artist's intention to move forward in time. Thanks.